giving you a voice.
Making it loud our own way.
Welcome to the fun.
And now, time for the main event, I guess.
I know we need like a soundboard for this here.
I know we need like a dramatic beginning for Finals 3. What's to come has so much to cover. So we're gonna start with one of the more amusing autonomous modes I saw all year. If you didn't see it live, it was just nuts. As 1323 drives over and literally like gets hooked on the scale and does like a legit pull up, and like their entire robot's off the ground, and they pull up on this. It's just great. I think it's on screen.
This is nuts.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say, Kevin, Paul, do you guys want to comment? Like from behind the glass, I don't know, what could you see of this, and then what are the thoughts of something? Because the way I look at it, I'm like 1323 is done, right?
Yeah, I mean, Copioli picked the wrong Auton. So we were because of the way the center 3-cube auto was working and the way how fast they were out of the gate, our APR, which we call the annexation of Puerto Rico move, which goes across the backside, around the side, to augment, the 3-cube, which we ran at Champs all the time. But at Champs, we made our third partner put a delay in their switch, which costs points. So we decided we want to do that. So we put a delay when the color was to the right, when the switch was to the right, because they were super quick. I picked the version of the Auton that didn't have the delay. I had the operator pick it. And so we went right out of the gate and ran into them and pushed them. I don't know where the heck they went. And then that caused everything to be off, and we ended up running into Madtown. And then that was just like disaster central. We were supposed to run the 3-switch Auton there because the blue was on the right, but I picked the wrong Auton. So, who knows what would have happened.
Kevin, any thoughts from you, like from behind the glass? Is this something you could even see from your perspective?
Yeah, I had no idea what our auto did because I was just looking at 1323 the whole time.
That's awesome. Yeah, for sure. So talking about some of the rest of this match, by the way, there's 2 key moments I want to point out here. So I'm going to go back just a little bit to about when there's about a minute 50 left in this match as we start to come down here. So the first one is we're going to see in just a moment here, 1323 is coming up to score. And as they come down, it looks like part of their elevator chain, I don't know, belt chain, whatever that would be, that you'll see in just a second here, essentially breaks off coming up on the score right here, which made them modify their strategy. I'm assuming you just saw it right there on screen, and now they come over to play some defense against 254, which I think is really smart thinking of them, right? I think they got a penalty or so by doing that, but it looks like pretty effective defense from there as well. Paul, was that something just quick thinking on 1323 to go ahead and do?
Yeah, we were doing like we thought it was fancy, but we were doing like a cube handoff, play defense kind of strategy in 3. So we just found that we were spending too much time getting each other's way. So we had this thing where if there's cubes laying on the floor by us, go do something else, go find a cube and get in other people's way. And then you can see when you drop cubes, we were dropping cubes in that last match because our intake was just shot. You tend to get in their way anyway, but if you watch them, they're going far and away to try to, we found that when you had 2 elite level robots at the scale, sometimes it's faster to just feed the other one because it was all about rhythm. And so if one robot was in the rhythm, we would do that. So we were playing, we can't play spot defense because we have Omni wheels, but they can. So they were doing it.
One other area I want to point out for this match too, and we just passed a little bit ago, but I'm going to go back to about 50 seconds here and maybe get a couple of reactions from this as we come through. So you're going to see 3310 in a moment score on the scale. Go to the portal, and of course we're going to talk about the blockade a little bit. And PJ, I want to get your impressions of this as a referee as well too. But you're going to see right here, this is where the blockading starts. Both 1678 and 649 box out both lanes for 3310 to make their way to the other end of the field. that's happening right now. So, PJ, I want to bring you in on this as a referee. How do you fare on this blockading call, and how do you kind of interpret this blockade that was called on the field?
So, I'm gonna preface this with saying that blockading is one of those rules that has that degree of subjectivity to it, which is just a function of some of the rules that first writes. But in that token, when I watch this, as a referee, I would not call a blockade on this. And that is because, to clarify my position, when at about, probably about 48 seconds, when you see 33-10 end up between the two of them, my first sort of qualification of, is this a blockade, is can they get out? And in my opinion, the answer is yes, because there's space in between 1678 and the switch. If right about where we're at right now, there is space between the switch for them to have turned and gone through the opponent, what's that called, the platform zone, and escaped. So in my opinion, that's what qualifies. Additionally, I would not consider what 1678 was doing as participating in a blockade, because they are just over there trying to score on the scale. They don't really move in the way of 33-10 at all, or do anything that I would call a blockade. So in my opinion, as a referee, I would not have called that as a blockade. That may be something after the match, if this was a quals match or a quarterfinals match, where, an earlier match where I would have talked to the team after and warned them that they were getting close to a situation that might warrant a blockade. But I would not call a blockade based on what happened in that situation. So
that's an interesting take on there, because I think a lot of people are more concerned with what happened afterwards and not necessarily the call itself. But I'm not sure, Kevin or Paul, if this is anything you do want to weigh in particular, but I'll kind of open it up to you guys if either one of you want to talk about this.
I mean, this is Paul. I want to talk about it, but but I'd like to hear Kevin's take on it too. It's not going to change my opinion.
Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah. I mean, when Paul first brought it up, about blockade, I mean, all I can think about is like every other first match where it's like, yeah, it's a blockade. Like, they probably just couldn't find a way out. But then I went and rewatched the match, and if I was in Paul's shoes, I'd been pretty upset, and especially towards the last, like the 30-second to 20-second mark, where you can really see 1678's camping the they're camping right between the switch and the fence wall, and same with 649 on the other side.
To clarify, that one is much closer. The one where I get what you're talking about. The one I was talking about was when they sort of when it was 1678 in the null zone and 649 was chasing 3310 around. That's where a lot of people think the blockade happened. Like, that one I think is questionable because they could have kept going through the same zone. But the one where they're both in a side of the switch going back and forth, that one I'm much more tempted to call a blockade, because they just keep bouncing back and forth and they don't give 3310 a fair chance to get out.
Yeah, agreed. Yeah, if only the first one came up, I would be not too happy with the decision. The first scenario was 1678 trying to score on the scale, and they're kind of near the null zone. Pretty comfortable with that being not blockading. But the second one, yeah, I can totally see it. That's no fun for anyone on the other side of the blockade.
Paul, any thoughts and comments from you?
For me, I'm going to say this about everything. One, I think we should have lost the match. I think we should have, not have been a chance. As a matter of fact, I said what I had to say about the blockade, not in the fact of like, should it be, I don't even think, because that rule is so convoluted, like, I didn't even know that was a thing. But what my issue is like the blockading call, if the call is called, it's not even, there's no points assessed to it. It's like, if you, one way you read it, it's like just a yellow card and nothing else. And you're like, really? So this about that, like, we took our licks. I said what I had to say. I was done. Like, that took all of like not even a minute. We went, got our finalist things. We were all in the pit except for a couple of scouts were still in the stands. We were just cleaning up our pit. And then I hear all this commotion. And that's when I saw my kids like jumping up and down and stuff. And I'm like, what just happened? And so this about that, I don't think that that we should have won this tournament, period, from that particular call. However, PJ, man, respect you, but dude, this blockade shit has got to be fixed. Like,
I do not disagree.
1678 is really smart. Mike is really smart. And if you watch what they did, they were feeding cubes into the lane that 649 was not blocking. And so it was way too coordinated to be accidental. And at the very end, where there were no more cubes to pose as a thing that I'm trying to do, you can watch when we come into that channel, they actually stop trying to score and they try to block us. He doesn't even turn around to try to score. He's actively pushing us and then gets themselves in position. And while that's happening, 649 is going all the way around to get back into position to block that lane. Mm-hmm. They knew that 1678 was going to try to stop us, so they didn't need to help. And so then at the very end, when you, at 20 whatever seconds, you see them going back and forth in the lane, that's just proof that entire coordination was a coordinated effort. Now, but I like this. I don't really care about what happened here because we had an amazing time, and taking those guys to 3 was way more than I thought we would do, with you, especially with the condition of our gripper and stuff like that. But I'm thinking about the future. I'm looking at this from a game design standpoint. And now that I'm not on Vex, I'm not with Vex. It's not a Vex Homer thing. But if blockading was a thing that we were going to regulate in Vex, there is no doubt about it. It would be perfectly spelled out in the rules that it's a DQ. It would stop the behavior. It would simply stop the behavior. Mm-hmm. Nobody calls it. Nobody ever calls it. Just like a dive in soccer, nobody calls it, and so everybody dives. If 2 high-profile teams get DQ'd in a key match at a real event, it would be a huge deterrent for blockading, a huge deterrent. And that's what's got to happen. If they're going to make games with small corrals and stuff like that to keep the game interesting, that's great, but this blockading thing has got to get under control.
I agree. I've been a ref for 2011, 8 years at this point, 7 years. And the rule, I don't think the blockading rule has ever changed. I think it's been the same wording every year, and nobody ever knows what it means. So you go to different places, and it's called different ways, and each way is theoretically valid because of the way the rule is written, which is just nonsense, because rules shouldn't be different depending on where you happen to be competing.
Thank you to all of our co-executive producers, keeping fun loud, live, and independent. Pledge your support. Go to patreon.com/funfrc.